Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Hello from Sydney, Australia. Richard Saunders here with you once again for the Skeptic Zone, episode number 156 for the 15th of October. Yes, the Skeptic Zone, the podcast for science and reason, and we've got some science and reason heading your way this week. In just a moment, I catch up with our reporter, Joanne Benhamu, who's going to fill you in a little sneak peek, a little sneak listen to her talk at the upcoming Skeptic Camp in Melbourne. Now, head to www.skepticcampmelbourne.com for more information. And if you're in Melbourne, if you're in Victoria, or if you're in that region of Australia, or in fact, if you're in Australia at all, head for Melbourne and head to Skeptic Camp. It's going to be a fabulous day where you can meet a lot of the Skeptic Zone team, including our reporter Maynard. Oh, that should be great fun. Now, after that, Dr. Rachel Dunlop, and I catch up with a good friend of ours, Lawrence Leung, who recently had a show here in Australia on the ABC TV called Unbelievable. Now, Lawrence is an entertainer, a comedian, and he's recently been doing a big tour. We have a little chat about that and the reaction to his show, which was quite sceptical. The show, that is, not the reaction. Well, some reaction was sceptical, I guess. And after that, there's a little clip of me being interviewed on Sydney radio about spoon bending. Yes, after all these years, there are still people out there who want to know about spoon bending. Well, I give a little insight about my take on spoon bending for the Sydney radio audience. And to wrap up the show, Dr. Rachie Reports. Dr. Rachie was the guest on the Mamamia TV chat show here on cable TV in Australia. And that is now available on YouTube. You can watch Dr. Rachie, or you can listen to this, which is the audio from it, or both if you so desire. If you want to see Dr. Rachie on the program talking about vaccination, just head for www.mamamia.com.au and follow the links to show 11. Now, Dr. Rachie has had a very tiring couple of weeks responding to all the posts to her blog about vaccination at Mamamia. A lot of the flying monkeys, as we call them, the anti-vaxxers, have been swooping down on that blog, and Rachel's been doing her best to battle those comments. A very moving Dr. Rachie Reports, because we also hear from Toni and David McCaffrey, who I'm sure you will recall lost their baby in 2009 to whooping cough. A very important Dr. Rachie this week. But right now, let's play a little interview, a little catch up with Joe Benhamu about Skeptic Camp. Skeptic Camp Melbourne is coming up, everybody. I'm sorry I won't be able to be there myself, but somebody who will be there is Joe Benhamu. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Richard.
Now, we're just about to go into a skeptics meeting, very serious stuff, but you were just mentioning that you're looking forward to Skeptic Camp.
I am.
And I really wish I was going, because your talk sounds like the highlight of the day. The low light. What are you going to be speaking about?
So I'm going to be giving a talk all about the history of colonic irrigation, enemas, and just about anything to do with quackery and bombs.
Insert your own jokes here.
Yes, please do.
And it's called Getting to the Bottom of it.
It's called Getting to the Bottom of Colonics.
You see, folks, this is why, if you're in Melbourne, you should definitely go to Skeptic Camp.
Yes, you should, absolutely. At last I heard from the organisers, I think they've got 118 or 120 people registered.
Cool.
It's a free event, and I think the organisers have done a great job. We had a wonderful Skeptic Camp in Sydney.
It's the
22nd of October.
22nd, that's right, of October.
Saturday.
Yep.
And Dr. Rachie's going down. I'm going down, as we've said. Who else? I think, quite a lot of the Sydney people, but I think if you just go onto the Skeptic Camp...
Maynard.
Maynard's going down.
Maynard will be there.
Maynard and I can talk about bottoms and all sorts of things. I believe he recently went on a trip up a bottom.
folks, go to Skeptic Camp in Melbourne and find out more. Thank you, Jo.
Thank you, Richard.
So there you go, folks. Don't miss Skeptic Camp if you're in Melbourne. All right. It's time to sit back. Oh, I'm better from my cold, by the way. All gone. Completely healthy. Oh, yeah. Ready to go. I'm so healthy. In fact, I think I'm going to run downstairs and have a cup of send your suggestions on a postcard or a tweet and let you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. Well, folks, we interviewed Lawrence Leung a few months back on the Skeptic Zone podcast. I'm delighted to say I've caught up with Lawrence again. He's in Sydney for his show. I'm here in Newtown having a nom with Dr Rachie. Hi, Dr Rachie.
Hi, of course, if there's a nom, I'm here.
And we're delighted to see you, Lawrence. And you're on a big tour at the moment.
Yeah, I'm touring my live stand-up comedy show, which is called Lawrence Leung Wants a Jetpack. Because really, don't we all? We'll promise them. Where are they? And I've been taking that around the country, and just got back from the UK with the show as well.
Wow. So how many more months or weeks are you doing that?
We're reaching the tail end now. I'm doing Sydney on Friday night, which is sold out, and then I'm up in Brisbane for 2 shows on the Sunday, and then that's it for now. I might be going down to Tasmania. I haven't worked those dates out yet. But I've been on the road living out of a suitcase for about 3 months now. So,
oh, yes.
Yeah. It'll be good to be sleeping in my own bed, in my own doona.
Now, I'm sure a lot of our Australian viewers would have enjoyed your recent TV series, of course. What was the reaction, by and large, to that series?
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and it was unbelievable too. That's the name of the show, and that was the reaction. It's been great. I think the world of the internet has found it as well. So I've got a lot of messages from people from overseas as well who've seen this show. You know, it's a skeptically enhanced, I guess, comedy series.
Yeah, is that on iView or YouTube or sneakily somewhere? Or?
It was on iView, but ABC puts it up for a very short time only.
Yeah.
But a lot of cheeky people have spread it far and wide on the internet.
And of course, we don't officially condone that, of course, but there you go.
Oh no, I do. I love people to see it. No, yeah. I don't condone that.
Not officially.
I condone people watching the show.
Yes.
How they get it is not up to me. So people have really enjoyed the show. From all different quarters. I mean, these were 6 episodes on all sorts of different themes. And so I always get emails from people who are interested in, like, UFOs or interested in skepticism or interested in ghost hunting. I get emails from even magicians who really like the show as well, because I did an episode all about the methods behind magic without giving away any tricks.
Yeah.
Which is what magicians most complimented me on, because I didn't expose tricks behind magic, but I gave an account of how magic works. And for them, because they have the most secretive of the arts, I guess, yes. Their tricks and their methods are their livelihood. And it's not, as someone who's a fan of magic and also a bit of a hobby practitioner myself, that's the last thing I wanted to do, was to do one of those horrible exposure type shows.
Yeah, they're
on the
cheap
world.
and nasty.
Yeah. But having said that, because I know enough about magic, I could carefully construct the structure of this particular episode to be like a magic trick, where you sucker the audience in, and much like a con artist trick, they go along for the ride. You teach them all the things about misdirection and attention blindness and things like that, and then use the same techniques that you've been teaching them all along to then trick them at the very end.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a multi-layered episode that I was quite proud of.
I think I enjoyed that most of all. I enjoyed all the episodes, of course. They were all fascinating.
Yeah.
That one, and you did a seance, which was really interesting.
Yeah, I did a seance on television, and, that's not new for documentaries on TV. I'm sure there's a lot of skeptics who've also made shows with seances. But as far as
Richard Wiseman did, I think.
Yeah. As far as I know, I'm not sure. I have to look around, but I think my one is the only one that's not a gimmicked seance, and by that we're not using the parlour tricks of the Victorian era with, fishing wire and fake ectoplasms and dummy hands and people walking around in the dark dressed in black or anything like that. It was a purely psychological seance, meaning if you can create an environment where people were so impressionable and wanted to believe in something, would they really start to feel the sensations, perceive the sensations that would go along with a seance, despite this haunted house not being haunted and there not ever actually being a ghost. And, I did this scientifically. I made sure that the house wasn't haunted. I had an exorcist and a shaman exorcise the spirits. So in case someone said to me, oh, no, but maybe the house was already haunted to begin with, I cleansed it.
Where was that filmed?
That was filmed in Sydney in this beautiful old house by this lovely couple who have all these amazing antiques. Like every room in the house was almost like in a different period style because they collected all these antiques. So of course at night it was the scariest, creepiest looking place. I mean, the gate itself, when the gate opened, it opened with such a blood-curdling sort of screech. My art department was like, we don't have to be here. This house does it itself. We're scared, and this is the daytime. So we found the perfect place to set up the conditions for an artificial seance.
That was a fascinating episode, and of course this series that you did really saw you travelling far and wide.
Yeah.
Because we bumped into each other when you were filming in Las Vegas.
That's right. Tam 8. Yes.
With our good friend Banachek, who was driving you around blindfolded.
Yeah.
And it was really great because you told me about it and I heard about it at the time, but when I saw it on your show, I was just laughing so much because you were really looking scared.
I was absolutely scared. I mean, I've followed Banachek's career for a while, so I know that he's a top-grade mentalist, and I was in good hands. But what he did was a blindfold drive, and despite knowing it was a trick, I was still terrified because this guy still has a blindfold over his face.
This gaffer tape, right?
Gaffer tape, and he also had
pennies.
coins. Yeah, he had Spanish dollars or something, pesos. I'm not sure what they're called.
Tape and stuff.
He had them gaffer taped over his eyes. Now, people always ask me, it's the number one question, which is, how did he do it? And the fact is, I don't know.
Yeah.
And actually, I don't really care to know. I love the fact that I don't know how he does it. I know it's not psychic powers, and he insists it's not psychic powers, and so we all know it's a trick, but it's just a damn good trick, and he's a damn fine magician. It was our gaffer tape. He asked us to bring our own gaffer tape.
Wow.
He said, I think I want to do this, blindfold drive thing. He's not from Vegas, we're not from Vegas, so we hired a car. So he didn't have a car of his own. He didn't have like a trick remote control car. We literally hired that car just before the interview, and then just before we got into the car, we had to ring up the ABC and speak to the legal department because the legal department.
I can imagine that conversation.
Yeah, I would love to hear what that conversation was like. I'm sure they would have said, are you a practitioner of blindfold driving? Have you ever damaged property or humans?
or something like, we want to take this guy out, he's going to be blindfolded driving. And the other line, what?
Yeah.
What?
I don't think that's in the book here.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, at the very end of the episode, just as a gag at the end, and the last bit was obviously just set up for a joke, which was I take Banachek blindfold driving when he was in Australia. Yeah. He was doing a lecture for magicians, and so he was such a good sport to get into a car with me, with my blindfold, and of course the car smashed, and it was smashed with a stunt person, and we put the stunt person in the credits just to prove that this bit's like set up for a joke, whereas everything else happened was for real.
Yes.
And the interesting thing was, ironically, the implication meant that the ABC lawyers were more happy with someone else risking my life than they were with me risking someone else's life.
Well, I think the gag worked really well. It was a wonderful ending to that episode, and Banachek acted beautifully.
Yeah.
He really did.
Banachek at the very end, it was like he was giving me $1 million challenge, and then obviously I crashed the car because I can't blindfold drive, so that was just a joke, yeah.
So I'm really pleased that you've had mostly positive reaction, I would say, to the series, but you would have had some negative.
I've had some nasty emails, and I've had some criticism, which I often write back to as well, and there's other like spurious stuff which I just ignore as well. But there was one person on Twitter who said that if they saw my smug hipster face in the street, they would smash it. And I think I was more aggrieved by the label of hipster than I was, being called a skeptic. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, my Twitter followers would know, but just last night, another show of The One went to air, and there I was being skeptical. And most of the skeptical, the comments on Twitter were fun and interesting, and people. But there was one person who just went really overboard with their abuses and their insults. But I guess there are just people like that out there.
Well, I mean, from all stripes. There are people out there who can express through the anonymity and of the internet anything they want. People can just say anything on the internet. It's interesting. The internet's all about people who love things or hate things. Things that are in the middle, a bit meh. No one talks about it.
And cats.
Yeah, of course, cats. Cats will always outrate both psychics and skeptics on television.
Maybe you and I should get together one day and create a new show about skeptical cats.
Skeptic or psychic cats.
Or psychic cats. And they can
head to head, they go against I think that would be called a cage fight. That would be quite unethical.
That would be an interesting show.
Cat fighting.
It would be. So, any big plans for the future? Any things on the horizon that you're considering?
I think I'm speaking at the Skeptics mini convention later on this year. Is
your birthday, don't
It is my birthday, yeah.
The 19th of November.
Yes, I'll be speaking on your birthday.
Lawrence is coming to my birthday.
Not because it's the convention, because it's Rachel's birthday.
Yeah, one of the co-hosts of GAC, which is the Global Atheist Conference next year in Melbourne. But in terms that's my, I guess, more scientific endeavours, but there's a lot more sort of comedy coming down the pipe work as well, in terms of both, hopefully on telly and hopefully live on stage as well. Plus short films. I've been in a heist film. I just got back from filming in Canberra, being a criminal on film, which was quite fun.
Yeah, wow.
So that's me completely against type as well.
And I saw you on the internet recently chatting to a scientist.
Yes. I've been promoting science and knowledge with the help of Griffith University. They've got a bit of a campaign to get more people into science research. So I've been helping them by filming short interviews with their scientists, including some commercials, just to promote the idea of knowledge. And it's quite interesting because these commercials aren't your sexy youth-orientated university ads. These are ads which we have quite leading scientists actually talking about what they do, which is kind of a different spin for like an ad for a university. Yeah. Because it's very much focused on research and very much focused on achievements in scientific knowledge, be they finding the cure for malaria or looking at heart disease or migraines in Norfolk Island by studying the genetic population. So that's been quite fun to do as well.
A varied career you're having at the moment, Lawrence. It's really interesting. If our listeners want to check out your work, what's the best place they can head?
The best place would be lawrenceleung.com. That's my name. My surname's very unusual to spell, so bear with me. It's Lawrence, L-A-W for starters, and L-A-W-R-E-N-C-E, and Leung is Leung.com. So that's basically has all my travails, both in comedy and making an entertaining approach to psychology, because I like to kind of teach people about how we all see the world, but from a scientific light.
And people can have a go and Google Unbelievable ABC maybe, or Unbelievable TV, and see what they find.
I'm sure it's on YouTube. I'm sure some 15-year-olds uploaded the whole series. It's called Unbelievable. I'm sure it's very easy to find, because the volume of emails I've been getting about the show, I know people from around the world have found it.
That's good. Yeah,
and Lawrence's Choose Your Own Adventure is available on Catch Up 7 Yahoo television in Australia.
Yes.
So you can watch it for free there.
That's interesting. While you're there, you can watch the last episode of The One too.
Yeah, good luck to the do you have any predictions on who you think... Are you not allowed to say who you think's going to win?
Well, I don't know.
We have to vote, don't we?
You see, the thing is, the show gets... we have 10 contestants... 9. Actually, 9 now, because one was eliminated on the last episode. And over the next weeks, we whittle that down to 3.
Right.
And then it's Australia votes. You ring up for your favourite, you see, and then that's how the winner's chosen. So I have no idea.
Wow.
It might be me for all I know. You know.
Surely the psychics know who's going to win. They have to make predictions.
They
as
do.
well.
They make predictions, and we see how that goes.
That's really funny. Good luck on the one.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
And good luck on the repeats of Unbelievable.
Maybe we should have Australia's Best Skeptic.
Australia's Best Skeptic? With the panel of psychic judges.
Now that's something that would be fun to watch.
That would be unbelievable.
You're listening to The Skeptic Zone. I'm Brian Dunning from Skeptoid.com. When I'm not tuned into The Skeptic Zone, I'm recording the Skeptoid podcast, doing what I can to further knowledge by blasting away the widespread pseudosciences that infect popular culture. I've also compiled a 40-minute educational video on critical thinking called Here Be Dragons at herebedragonsmovie.com. I hope you check those out, and I hope you enjoy The Skeptic Zone.
Recently, I was the guest on ABC Radio here in Sydney with Robbie Buck, where the topic of spoon bending came up. Yes, I know it's an old story, but you know what? I really like spoon bending, and it's always a good lesson to me on how people can be fooled. So here's my take on Sydney Radio about spoon bending.
Yes, you may recall last night we were talking about life's little mysteries, and Uri Geller's name was brought up in the conversation. This is the famous psychic from the 70s and 80s. I think he's still around, isn't he? He was friends with Michael Jackson for quite a while. The fine art of spoon bending that he was a master of. Others have followed in his footsteps and somehow managed to bend spoons using nothing but mind power, it seems. Somebody who has developed that skill himself is Richard Saunders. He's the Vice President of the New South Wales branch of the Australian Skeptics Association. Hello there, Richard.
Hello, good evening.
You've bent a few spoons in your time, have you?
I do, and strangely enough, I use the power of my mind. My mind is directing my fingers.
The mind is a wonderful thing.
It is.
And tonight, absolutely free. I think most other radio stations would charge listeners for this kind of information. Being the ABC, we have only charged you 8 cents, or plus a bit of inflation, a day. For this knowledge, we are turning the listeners of the evening show into psychics. I would like to thank George, who did very hurriedly text in the number 3 when a few moments ago I was asking you to tap your psychic powers and see if you could imagine what number it was that I was thinking of. It wasn't 3, George. It was 7. So it means that you should be listening ever so closely to this, because Richard is about to take you through the wonderful world of spoon bending and turn you into a bona fide, thoroughbred psychic tonight. How long have you been involved with the Australian Skeptics Association, Richard?
I've been pretty heavily involved for about 10, 11 years, but before then it was always a great interest of mine, dating right back to when I was a small boy in the 70s. And Uri Geller was very, very famous and popular. And I remember one occasion when he was about to appear on Australian television. I don't even know if it was live. You know, it could have been pre-recorded. Who knows? Yeah. And my brother and I hid the spoons because we were so scared that because that's what we were told. Yeah. Even people in their own houses, their spoons will bend. So we don't want our spoons to... Now... It's a great little funny story, yes. But then I'm thinking about it. That's really unfair. It's really
mean,
unkind.
Isn't it?
It's mean. It's unfair because and it also belittles magic, conjuring tricks. You know, spoon bending is a great old conjuring trick. Great for parties. Magicians do it for the purposes of entertainment.
Yes.
And what really amazes me to this day is that somebody like Geller, or there was a few of them around at the time, could do a shtick, an old, a magical shtick. It's like pulling a rabbit out of a hat. but then tell people it was real magic or real metaphysical stuff going on. It's jaw-dropping that people at the time bought it, let alone now.
Well, what were some of his other tricks, if you like, that he was renowned for? The spoon bending.
Yep.
I guess is the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah.
But were there any other?
Sure, he did about 4 others, I think, 3 or 4 others. One of them is called, in magic circles, design duplication. This is where someone writes something on a notepad and puts it in an envelope and seals it up, and then lo and behold, the performer, using magic powers, can recreate on another notepad what they drew. The envelope is unveiled or whatever, and wow, lo and behold, it's the same drawing. Of course, that's in magic books. If you go to the magic shops, you can buy books which will explain 3 or 4 techniques in how that very trick works.
So is it the power of suggestion that's working there?
Oh no, it's you have to plan out your trick.
Right, so it's more of a sleight of hand.
You could look at it that way,
right.
More of a sleight of hand. The other one he did was he'd make a compass bend. Move. He'd say, concentrate now, and he'd get right down in, and he'd make all sorts of noises like he was having constipation, and the compass would move ever so slightly.
Yes.
Now, you don't need to be a rocket scientist.
Did he have a magnet with him?
Yeah, you move compasses with a little magnet. It's as simple as that. But people wanted it to be true, and they just went along with it, I guess.
We're joined by Richard Saunders tonight, Vice President of the New South Wales branch of the Australian Skeptics Association. By this time, I'm hoping that you've run to the cutlery drawer. You've found your best spoon. No, don't do that. But if you can find yourself an old spoon, I take it, Richard, that we're looking for not particularly thick spoons in this case.
It really depends on how you want to do the trick, because you can actually use thick spoons or thin spoons. If you use good spoons, you get into trouble. At least I do. In fact, I've got one with me right now, fresh out of the packet. That's it falling on the table. I buy them in bulk at a catering store. I have to, because there's 2 basic spoon bending tricks. One is where the spoon will simply bend. Right. That's great, because you can bend it back and use it the next day for the next person. The other one is where you rub it between your fingers, and lo and behold, it droops, melts, and breaks in two.
This is the one I love. Yeah, that's where they rub it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that top secret magic business, or is there?
Well, I can allude to it.
Okay.
I can allude to it. It's basically metal fatigue. So, without going into too many details, because every magician's got a slightly different way to do it. It's you have to prepare the spoon in advance.
Right.
It's as simple as that. And there's an old expression: how do you bend a spoon? Well, you do it when no one's looking. Now, once the spoon is prepared enough by bending it back.
Can I ask you, as far as preparing is concerned, are we talking heat or force?
Force.
Okay.
But it does, during the preparation, when you're basically bending the spoon back and forth and back and forth, it will get a stress fracture.
Right.
And once the stress fracture is in the neck of the spoon, you stop, you bring the spoon up to as it was before, and it's surprisingly strong. You can stir your coffee with it, you can bang it on the table, you can use it like a normal spoon, but when you put it between your fingers and you do the final break, that's
when the magic happens.
That's when the magic happens.
Yeah.
Now, look, it's hard to explain on radio. If people really want to know how to do it, there's this little invention called YouTube, and wow, you can find just about anything there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But it never fails to amuse people. It's really great. And what I find really interesting is I do a lot of talks for schools, and the students don't have a clue what spoon bending is. It's way beyond their time.
Yeah, sure.
And it's a great lesson to know or to think about, if it was real, if people in the 70s, with the power of their mind, could actually melt metal, it wouldn't be something lost to time. It would be It would be incredible. It would be well known. Would be used.
But what a wasted opportunity that we can't fool the younger generation.
We can. I do it all the time, but I don't say it's psychic. I say it's a magic trick.
Richard, thank you ever so much for bringing out our psychic powers tonight through the magic of the bended spoon. I appreciate it.
Not a problem.
Good on you. Richard Saunders is there, Vice President of the New South Wales branch of the Australian Skeptics Association, turning you into a psychic tonight. 8:20.
Hallo aan alle Nederlandse luisteraars. Op dit moment bent u aan het luisteren naar de Skeptic Zone, voor wetenschap en kritisch nadenken. Voor meer informatie ga naar www.skepticzone.tv.
Now it's time for Dr Rachie Reports with Dr Rachel Dunlop.
Several weeks ago, I was asked to write a blog post about the science behind vaccination for the very popular blog in Australia, Mamamia, which you can find at mamamia.com.au. The post turned out to be very popular and has since been shared over 4,000 times on Facebook, tweeted more than 400 times, and at this point is up to more than 1,100 comments. As a part of the blog post, Mamamia TV, which screens on Sky News, did a story about vaccination last Friday. It aired on Friday in Australia and featured the McCaffreys, who were brave enough to talk about the death of their 4-week-old daughter Dana from whooping cough in 2009. Today we present for you the audio from the show. If you'd like to see the video, it's available on YouTube if you Google Mamamia Sky News Episode 11.
This is a very moving but ultimately inspirational interview with an incredible couple, Toni and Dave McCaffrey. Their daughter Dana was only 3 weeks old when she first started to get a little sniffle. And her mother Toni took her to the GP 3 times, actually 4 times in 3 days. She kept getting sent away, but she knew something was wrong. It was only on that last visit that their nightmare truly began.
It wasn't until my doctor rang, very shocked that with the positive test, and I just picked up my son from school and she said, go straight to the hospital. And she said, it's whooping cough. And I was really relieved. Like, great, we know what it is.
Let's sort it out.
When we walked into the ward, they had it all ready. We went into the isolation room and we literally walked in. It was about 10 minutes after we got there and she had her first coughing paroxysm.
And what's that? Like a coughing fit?
It's a coughing fit. And I wouldn't even say it's a cough. It was more like...
It's like choking.
Yeah.
Until she went silent, until she started going red and purple and blue and suddenly just stopped breathing in our arms.
Oh, my God, this is just after you arrived at the hospital.
Just as we'd arrived. And we thought, my God, if I'd been...
in the car or at home?
We would have been resuscitating her on the side of the road. And they just quickly put the oxygen on and very calmly said, yep, this is whooping cough. And we were just in shock. That's how we learnt about what whooping cough is. And then she would cough like that up to 10 times an hour. And all we could do would be put oxygen on her till she regained her breath.
Was there any treatment that could be given to a baby so young?
Well, that was a shocking thing for us. We just brought her in choking and they said... We thought, great, what happens now? Yeah. And they said, well, there is no treatment. All we can do is manage her. And she's going to cough like this for up to 3 to 4 months.
They give you antibiotics, but just to stop her being infectious to other people.
How long were you in the hospital for?
We're only in there for 5 days. And this was the shock for us, is that what was a blocked nose and something that I guess my GP made me feel like I was overreacting to... 5 days later, my baby's dead. It just was like a freight train. And she was getting better. On the Friday, the nurses said to me, you'll be home on the weekend. She's doing really well because she was recovering through the coughs really well.
I kind of think that once you're in a hospital and...
It was a shock to me. Even when she first developed the pneumonia and they said, look, we're going to airlift her, we're going to ventilate her and anaesthetise her, I was so relieved because it just meant... she didn't have to choke. Yeah. You know, surely there must be a cure. You know, there were babies in intensive care. You know, they were fighting cancer. They had heart defects, organs on the outside of their body. And I was just wishing that... I kept saying to myself, look, I'll swap it for cancer because at least then I've got we've got more of a chance. But when you're given that, and you've just got to do what you can.
There were no warnings or anything, because your area, this is something else you didn't know, has one of the highest rates of whooping cough in New South Wales.
That there was nothing. There was no information. There was nothing about adults needing a booster. I was just gobsmacked that something so deadly, there was no information about it. And then to know that, there was 2 other babies airlifted from the Lismore Base Hospital the week after Dana died. So that's 5 babies in 3 weeks from not a very heavily populated area. And it was a really deadly situation where you've got something out there that's such a dangerous disease that kills 1 in 200 babies, yet no one was being told. And it wasn't until after Dana died that then we discovered, to our horror, it was everywhere. Like, information is everything.
Yeah.
Because if you're warned, you know.
At least you got a chance if you're warned. The main reason they got vaccination is because these diseases haven't got cures for them. The only thing we've got is vaccination to help prevent this happening to our most vulnerable. So that's a really important point I think we need to make, that this is a deadly disease and they haven't found a cure for it.
But even in those days after Dana's death, seeing some of the headlines, it's a very empty feeling opening a paper seeing 4-week-old baby dead to whooping cough, and it's yours. But then you read stuff in it that's inaccurate.
Like what?
Like, there's 2 paragraphs and, a 4-week-old baby died of whooping cough, so if you have any symptoms, go to your doctor and get some antibiotics. And you think, but no, that's not going to do anything. And then, of course, the whole, it exploded with the pros and cons, both sides of the vaccination
this
debate.
False balance on the debate that we had no awareness of.
One of the morning shows was on, and they had an expert on, and the expert had said, you've got to question the mothers because she should have passed on immunity during childbirth. And I was watching that, and I rang my doctors going, it was me because I couldn't protect her. And that's when the day after Dana's funeral, when Dave and I just took some time out and went and sat by her grave for a few hours just to, I guess, get through the shock of it all, we just said, we've just got to say something because it's just, the information's not out there. People just don't understand. Protection.
And you didn't feel supported?
I felt
by
attacked.
our friends and family, we got support, but we started to become aware of a bunch of people who didn't basically like us because we were trying to help our community. I found that very strange.
Yeah, what we find bizarre is that our daughter had died of something horrendous.
That was preventable.
And we just wanted to warn other parents so it doesn't happen to them. It's not very
You've got no
simple.
political barrow to push. You've got no.
We
don't own a pharmaceutical company.
Well, it's one of those things. If someone's got information, then they're warned, and we just wanted to give people the warning we didn't get. And that's all our intention has ever been.
What an amazing couple, and what a terribly tragic story. The story of Dana McCaffrey is one that has gone on to have some benefit through the bravery of her parents who have decided to honour her by speaking out. What did you guys think?
Devastating, because we made the choice with our child to delay the whooping cough vaccination. It was something I didn't feel comfortable with, but my partner felt strongly about it, and I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's so much that I didn't know. Bron, you've got a little one. You probably can't talk. I know you're really upset during that. Sarah, I'll ask you.
Yeah, it's really upsetting, and I think that, you just never get over the death of a child, but it's a great legacy to their little girl that they can do this, and very powerful message, I think, of grief and loss. And I did know that. I've got a friend who's had a little girl that had whooping cough and she survived. But it was just horrific. And, I find it very upsetting. And it goes back to what we were saying before. We have scientists who believe in proof, who test things to the nth degree, that don't believe in coincidence or any of the other things we do. And when they absolutely tell us something, there's this questioning of science and the medicine and this belief in things really that... I don't mind if people believe in things that aren't dangerous to other people, like whatever floats your boat. But when you're kind of advocating and spreading misinformation that goes against science that can kill people in the community and small babies, it's horrendous.
I think there's also, I had whooping cough as a child as well, and I survived it. My mum said it was just a nightmare, but I think that you do hear the cases, my child had whooping cough and survived, and I think that the notion that it is a fatal disease, there is no cure for, gets lost in the study.
I thought it was so poignant where they talked about you get to hospital and you think, okay, now she can be treated. And to hear there is no treatment, there is no cure. Antibiotics, all it does is stop you from spreading it. It doesn't actually help you fight it. That's why, as Dave McCaffrey said, that's why we have vaccinations for the diseases that you can't cure.
Yeah, that's right.
Or treat.
And we wouldn't be knowing this information, we wouldn't be having this conversation if it wasn't for their courage. My parents lost my sister when she was really young, and so I know how difficult it is for people to speak out, but having seen their courage, it's just extraordinary. The only way we start this conversation is when people share powerful stories. And they're sad stories, but they're powerful because they make us question why people are acting like this in the first place. Why are people not getting their children vaccinated? And that's the thing. It's this anti-establishment, anti-expert thing. It's this trend that seems to be going on out there. But I think it's actually linked to this other trend that's going on, which is the trend towards the individual. I can Google whatever I want. If you Google something now on vaccination, 60% of what you find is just rubbish, right? 60% is wrong. And this is because we all think now with the power of the internet and this trend towards teaching people that it's your right to decide. Well, actually, sometimes it shouldn't be. Sometimes, actually, it's going to impact on the rest of us.
I agree. I think it's one thing defending someone's right to their own beliefs if it doesn't affect anyone, as you say, Sarah. But to me, it's like defending someone's right to drink and drive. Stuff that. If your decision or your belief has the impact to affect my child, well, then you do not have the right to believe that. But there's a nasty twist to this story and something that will make you pretty angry. We've got an expert on set to discuss more of this story and more about the McCaffreys after the break. You're watching Mamamia on Sky News. Welcome back to the show. We've been talking about vaccinations and we just saw an interview with the very brave McCaffrey family who tragically lost their daughter Dana at 4 weeks old because they didn't know that there was a lot of whooping cough in their area. We're joined at the table by Dr Rachel Dunlop. Welcome.
Hi Mia, thank you.
Scientist and researcher who wrote one of the most popular posts we've ever had at Mamamia this week. It's already been shared, I think, 3,500 times and it is 9 myths about vaccination.
Yeah, well, I basically wrote it because, as the McCaffreys mentioned in their story, there's a lot of misinformation out there and it's very hard to find correct and accurate information. And because we are in the grips of a whooping cough epidemic in Australia, we have been for about 3 years now. We've lost about 4 babies already. In fact, there's a whooping cough epidemic worldwide and we're seeing the resurgence of vaccine-preventable diseases like measles, like mumps, things that you wouldn't expect to see anymore. And indeed, a few months ago, a woman in Queensland died from diphtheria, a 22-year-old.
Now, I mentioned that there was a nasty, disturbing twist to the tale of the McCaffreys, and that is that after their daughter died and they decided that they would speak out and say she died of whooping cough, please get your kids immunised and get your boosters, because that's something that they also didn't know, that immunity wanes and as adults you need boosters to stay protected. They became the target of abuse, and the anti-vaccination network and people who are anti-vaccination targeted them with letters, accused them of being liars, and basically have had this persecution of them.
There are people in Australia who are rabidly against vaccination.
And why are they?
Well, it's difficult to say.
What's their motivation?
I think most parents start from a position where their child has had a vaccination and then had some sort of a side effect, a bad side effect. Now, the issue with vaccinations is there's a lot of temporal association.
What does that mean?
Well, it means that you can get a vaccination and then your child might get sick. Now, just because that happened at the same time as the vaccination doesn't necessarily mean it was the vaccination. I mean, there are obviously cases of vaccine reactions. We know that they happen, and as doctors and scientists, we track those, and obviously people might remember last year there were a lot of reactions to the flu vaccine, particularly in Western Australia, and there was a thorough investigation by the government, and that vaccine was immediately pulled from use.
The most common misconception is the idea of vaccines somehow being linked to autism.
Yeah, and you mentioned that is unfortunately diagnosed around the same time as children get their MMR, and that's the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine. But that was originally started sort of by a scientist and doctor in the UK called Andrew Wakefield. Now, he's subsequently been struck off the medical register. The paper that he wrote, which led to that sort of belief, has been struck from the scientific literature, and he was completely damned for that work. It turned out, in fact, that he was not just doing bad science, it was fraudulent. And an investigation showed that he actually had so many conflicts of interest. He was actually getting paid by lawyers to demonstrate that vaccines cause injury in a case where these parents were going to sue big pharmaceutical companies. He got paid £450,000 for that.
This stuff happens, it makes me extra angry because it's people preying on that fear, that loss, that insecurity, people wanting an answer. I want an answer. And it just sort of then causes other loss.
That's particularly the thing about autism too, because we don't know what causes autism and we don't have a cure for it.
What drives these people?
It's a really scary concept. I don't have kids myself, but you guys would understand. Like, if you take your child to a doctor and it's a medical procedure, you don't want to harm your child. You don't want them to get sick. And the idea that if they do get sick, you've made that happen. You know, if they catch a disease in the playground, well, that's not really your fault. But if you are the one that caused that, so I mean,
it ties in with that. You know, the guilt factor stuff.
Yeah, and it's scary. And once you scare parents into thinking that these things might cause autism, it's like ringing a bell, Mia, you can't unring it.
But isn't there more fear about potentially them just being in a shop? Like, I was in a shop with my, at the time, 3-month-old baby, and a woman was pushing her pram with a little girl, and it was maybe 2 or 3, coughing. And I was and she said, "Oh, sorry, she's got whooping cough."
Are you serious?
And she's out in the shop. Yeah, and I could not get my daughter away fast enough, and I just thought that is just so irresponsible.
As you say, it's not an argument. It's
not a debate.
It's not a debate. Autism is not caused by vaccination, and to say otherwise is illogical. It's also stupid. Yeah, it's stupid, and it runs down the medical profession and the thousands of professionals who've dedicated their lives to vaccines and to studying these diseases. What is it about people who then go, "Oh, well, I just don't believe it, it's a conspiracy"?
But this is happening on so many things. It's happening on climate change. You know, it's a conspiracy. It's not real. It's there's the one about HIV doesn't cause AIDS.
Right, and a whole range of others. And I think
there's quite a few of them at the moment.
We've got to go back to talking about responsibility. One of the values that we've got to be teaching our young people as they grow up is actually we have a responsibility for each other, not just for ourselves. We've become so focused on our right to choose. We've been talking about that across the show here, but here, my right to choose not to vaccinate. Well, actually, you know what? That's going to have an impact on someone else.
Right. They're called the Australian Vaccination Network, which is an incredibly misleading, because if you're on a website, if you don't believe in vaccination, then call your website the Anti-Vaccination Network. Don't call it the Australian Vaccination Network and then have a whole lot of misinformation, which is what's happening, isn't it?
AVN, as they're known, they do have a website that's very schmick. It looks very professional. As a parent and not
it looks very balanced, doesn't it?
It does. But
so you've read it.
And it's misleading because, in fact, there were 2 complaints made about the information on that website last year, and the Healthcare Complaints Commission in New South Wales did a 12-month investigation, and when they came out at the end, they deemed that their information was misleading, that this organisation cherry-picked scientific literature to make it sound legitimate, and all of their information is anti-vaccination. It's not anything useful, and that parents should seek a registered health practitioner. Now, in fact, they refused to put a disclaimer on their website saying that, because clearly they don't want parents to know they're against vaccination. Because why would you listen to them? So as a result of that, they also lost their charity licence.
So they're a charity, which means what? That they're, because they solicit for donations, don't they?
Yeah.
So they make money out of what they do.
Yeah. But to me, I can't understand how an organisation like that got a charity status to begin with.
Absolutely.
Because I don't know how you could say discouraging parents from vaccinating is a charitable activity. The head of that organisation said that with whooping cough, you didn't die from it 30 years ago and you don't die from it now.
But this is rubbish. Like, what could she possibly die from then?
Well,
when she's
this is a very good question.
And coughing.
And indeed, the head of the AVN rang the Department of Public Health in New South Wales to ask for that information personally.
Oh my God.
So
I know,
So not only have they lost their baby, but they've had to defend themselves when all they're trying to do, they're saying seek reputable information.
And
because in their area, back then, there was no information. She said we were in the highest risk, the area in Australia with the highest incidence of whooping cough, and there was no pamphlets. She told me this heartbreaking story of going home and looking through the bounty bag that you get when you left hospital. She said, there must have been a pamphlet. I must have missed something. It must have been my fault. And she said, you know, you heard all those babies in that area had been airlifted and there was no public health warning. They weren't advised to keep their children inside. And her husband works at a primary school as well. And they've gone on to have a little girl called Sarah, who's 8 months old, who I met yesterday as well, who's just beautiful. And when she was born, there were 50 kids at his school who had whooping cough. And he took 6 months off so that they absolutely just lived in a bubble.
Another common question that I've heard about vaccinations is why are they all bundled together?
There's been studies done looking at whether it's beneficial to separate them or not. And in fact, there was a study done in 1,000 kids which was published in the journal Paediatrics, I think last year. And they followed kids after a year after they'd had their vaccinations, and then when they were 7 and when they were 10. And the kids that had their vaccinations on schedule, according to the schedule, performed better in neurological tests than the kids who'd missed them or had none at all. So you see this so many times in scientific studies. The only thing you'll find that's different between vaccinated kids and unvaccinated kids is the unvaccinated kids get communicable diseases. They get whooping cough, they get pertussis, they get the flu. That's the only difference. There's never been any evidence to show that vaccinated kids are more susceptible to arthritis or to eczema or any sort of allergies.
So this idea that a vaccination gives you the disease is incorrect.
Absolutely
Another
incorrect.
myth.
Absolutely. I mean, people do sort of mention this, particularly with the flu vaccine.
And because kids do get a reaction, they get a little lump on their leg or their arm.
They can get a bit of a fever sometimes.
Yeah.
Don't they get the dead virus, so you build the antibodies around
Well, the whole point of,
like,
you will get a reaction, and that's a good thing because it means that your immune system is responding. Because basically what's in a vaccine is a small part or either the dead virus or bacteria. So it's inactivated, which means you can't get the disease. And then your immune system responds by making antibodies. So you will get a similar sort of effect to what you might get with the full disease, but much less serious. And so what that means is your body's primed then with antibodies, and next time you come across that disease in the environment, you're ready to fight it straight away. So that's another myth that some people talk about too, is, well, my child got vaccinated for whooping cough, but they still got whooping cough.
They got much more in a mild.
But yeah, 1 in 200 babies that haven't had a vaccine will die. Anyone who's not vaccinated for whooping cough will get much more severe case. So I like to sort of describe it as it's not a force field. A vaccination is not a force field.
My son was vaccinated and he got, my eldest son, and he got whooping cough last year when he was 13. So the fact that the vaccination wears off doesn't mean you shouldn't get it. It just means that you should get a booster.
In fact, exactly. It's the booster that as adults we're all supposed to probably start.
But only about 10% of us are actually still immune to whooping cough.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and only
a lot of us are spreading it to kids.
Yeah, my brother had a little baby and he was like, you all need to get
absolutely.
You do. Because there is an epidemic. Some states of Australia, they are offering free boosters to carers, grandparents, healthcare professionals. In Victoria, at least, it's free until June 2012. But I'm not sure about other states anymore because they did it for a while and then they sort of stopped. And this is something the McCaffreys have been saying for a long time, is they've been talking to government health ministers and saying, guys, wake up. Give us a campaign of awareness, and everyone who's susceptible and exposed, near kids should have a booster.
Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for. I would encourage you to go and look at Rachel's post and share it. You can find it on the homepage at mamamia.com.au. 9 myths about vaccination. Please share it with everybody you know. Thank you so much to my guests, Bronwyn, Sam, Sarah, and Simon, and of course Dr Rachel. Thank you very much. You're okay, Sam?
Oh, my God. Stay away from my daughter. Get your booster after the show.
I've actually had a booster.
Have a red frog and see your doctor. See you next week. Have a great one.
Dr Rachel Dunlop is one of Australia's foremost media commentators in matters concerning so-called alternative medicine. She has appeared on national radio and national television. Dr Rachie is available for interviews, and you can contact her at Rachel@skepticzone.com. TV.
Have you heard about QED? The exciting Skeptical Conference, 10th and 11th of March 2012.
Quite exciting days.
You're probably wondering, why should I go to QED?
Quasi-existential dilemma.
We'll have the investigator and legend Joe Nichol.
Quite extraordinary detective.
Alternative medicine expert Edzard Ernst.
Quacks endure difficulties.
Monsters, werewolves and lucid dreaming from Deborah Hyde.
Quirky, eerie demons.
Massimo Polidoro, head of the Italian Skeptic.
Questo egregio dottore.
David Aranovich and conspiracy theories.
Quite easily debunked.
Secular campaigner Mariam Namazi.
Quell equality detractors.
Sarah Anglis will show us how to play the theremin with robots.
Quivering electronic devices.
Ufologist Ian Ridpath.
Quiz extraterrestrial details.
Professor Steve Jones and why creationism is nonsense.
Quiet and evolution deniers.
Podcaster and spoonbender Richard Saunders.
Questions ESP demonstrations.
Author Ophelia Benson.
Queen existentialist debater.
And we'll have comedy from Robin Ince and guests.
Quality entertainment, definitely.
Tickets are £89 and they're going fast, so hurry.
Queue everybody directly.
Could you cut that out? You can get your ticket from QEDcon.org.
Quote event domain?
Marsh, seriously, if you don't stop that, I'm going to have to hurt you.
Quickly end discussion.
Come to QED Manchester.
Question, explore, discover.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. Now, over the coming few weeks, I will be producing the Skeptic Zone from the United States. I'm off to sunny San Francisco for a few days, followed by a trip to New Orleans, where I'll be attending the SciCon, the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry Convention. That should be very exciting. And I'm sure to grab some great interviews and insights from very famous skeptics at that convention. And after that, I'm heading to spend a little bit of time with my good buddy Brian Dunning from Skeptoid.com, where he's promised to take me to Death Valley. He hasn't promised to take me back from Death Valley, but I'm sure we'll work something out. Now, if I do survive a trip to Death Valley with Brian Dunning, I will be speaking at in the OC. Science and Suds. It's called Science and Suds on Saturday, the 5th of November at 7 p.m. at the UCI's Anthill Pub and Grill in the Student Centre. I'm reading this off a website, folks. 4200 Campus Drive, Irvine, California. Click here for the map. Or you have to go to the website and click here for the map. Yes, I'll be giving a talk. I can't wait to be there. I can't wait to meet you if you can come along to that event. And the best way to find out more, it's on Meetup, the Greater LA Skeptics Meetup group. Or you can Google that, or Google Richard Saunders Science and Suds, or Richard Saunders OC Pub. Something like that will get you there. So if you're in that neck of the woods and you're free on Saturday, the 5th of November, I hope I can meet you there. So until next week from my travels, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia.
You've been listening to The Skeptic Zone. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for comments, contacts, and extra video reports.